Good evening, everyone. Tonight, we're going to step softly into a story that begins where most stories refuse to linger, at a graveside, with the wind behaving like it has manners and the lilies not quite masking the smell of fresh earth. I'm Lydia Monroe, and I'll tell you how a funeral turned into a door closing, how grief walked me to the edge of my own porch and asked for the keys back. So before you get too comfortable, take a moment to like this video and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy what I share here. And in the comments, let me know where you're listening from and what time it is. I love seeing our little constellation of night owls. Now turn off the lights, maybe let a fan hum softly in the background, and let's begin our journey together tonight. The service was small and politely sad. The pastor kept his voice low, as if not to wake anything. I wore the black dress that fits me the way compromise fits a long marriage. Not perfectly, but reliably. People said the usual sentences that try their best. He said, "Peace now. You did everything you could. Call me if you need anything." The last one is a promise shaped like a business card. Useful, but only if you keep it somewhere you'll remember. Odd fact of the night, the word wake comes from Old English waken, to be awake, because families once literally kept watch through the night. We still do, just with casseroles and Wi-Fi. I misplaced my reading glasses twice during the reception, which counts as today's intellectual aging event. First, I found them in my hair, then in the pocket where pride goes when you're not looking. "You're allowed to forget things," Mrs. Chen from the library whispered, pressing my hand. I nodded, grateful for permission to be human in public. Sienna Blake, my daughter-in-law, stood near the coffee urn, beautiful and brittle, like a figurine that will crack if you clap too loudly. She had Andrew's last name and none of his E's. People brought her plates she didn't touch. She laughed at the wrong moments. Sharp, airless laughs that made the room blink. When she finally crossed to me, the temperature changed. "I hope you're coping," she said, the pause shaped like a pothole. "I'm standing," I said. "That's today's ambition." Her eyes were a winter color. "Andrew carried so much stress," she murmured. "It wasn't good for his heart." "Stress belongs to the century we live in," I said gently. "Not one person." She smiled the way people smile when they're about to deny you oxygen. "Well, some people contributed more than others." Then, as if the topic bored her, she adjusted a floral arrangement so the lilies faced the door, a hostess gesture with the soul of a warning. Academic phrase of the day: fundamental attribution error, the way we blame a person's character for what circumstance caused. Grief makes everyone an amateur psychologist with a gavel. When most of the mourners had drifted off to their lives, Sienna asked me to ride back to the house with her. "We should talk logistics," she said, as if my son were a calendar entry that needed rearranging. I sat in the passenger seat and watched the cemetery recede in the mirror, stones lowering their shoulders like tired soldiers. The car smelled faintly of vanilla and new decisions. At the house, someone had left a casserole on the porch with a note. "Heat at 350. We love you." Love, in my experience, arrives at 350 more than any other temperature. Sienna unlocked the door and walked straight to the kitchen, heels clicking a choreography I didn't recognize. I trailed after her, a tourist in my own life. "I've already started sorting Andrew's office," she said, opening a cabinet that wasn't a cabinet yesterday. "We'll sell the desk. It doesn't fit the vision." "The vision?" I asked. She didn't answer, just carried a stack of mail to the table, flipped through it, and set aside anything addressed to Lydia. "These are yours," she said, like they were coupons I'd been hoarding. 3 light jokes to keep my lungs expanding. If casseroles were currency, grief would be a well-funded enterprise. If sympathy cards could do laundry, today would have been a good day for whites. If silence had a tip jar, funerals would never run out of change. When she finally turned to me, her face was composed into something almost kind. "You've had a long day," she said. "Why don't you start packing a few things you can't live without? Clothes, documents, that sort of thing." The words reached my ears and then went looking for context. "Packing?" I repeated, keeping my voice in the soft register that says I'm listening, not agreeing. "This house was Andrew's," Sienna said, crisp as a new invoice. "He promised we'd make it our home. I can't heal here with you still in every room." A hand-me-down ache flared in my sternum. "This house was purchased 27 years ago," I said. "Thomas and I signed papers that still smell like ballpoint ink." Andrew moved back twice, once after college, once when the world chewed him a little. "But the deed is missing," she said quickly. "I looked. Perhaps it's at the bank, or you misplaced it. You've been under a lot of strain." There it was. A soft accusation dressed as concern. I considered how grief turns the ordinary into evidence, the way I forgot my glasses, the way casseroles stack like bribes, the way a widow can be mistaken for a squatter in a sentence. I also considered how very still the house felt, like it was listening for my answer. "You're asking me to leave my home the day we buried my son," I said. "I'm asking you to be reasonable," she replied. "You can take a few weeks to find a place. I'll cover a motel and we'll store whatever you can't move yet. Pack your bags and learn to live on your own terms." She smiled, and the smile didn't reach her pulse. "It's time." What I wanted to say, I've been living on my own terms since the morning I taught a 12-year-old how to tie a tie for his father's funeral. What I said instead, because exhaustion is a remarkable editor, "I need tea." I made it slowly, performing each step like liturgy. Kettle, cup, bag, pour. Steam rose with better manners than some people. Sienna stood in the doorway, checking her phone, thumbs moving like small, efficient knives. My hands shook only a little. I have learned how to set a teacup down gently even when the table isn't steady. Outside, the neighbors' wind chimes practice not crying. "I'll start in the bedroom," she said at last, as if we had agreed. "Oh, and Andrew's watch? He'd want me to have it." "He wanted many things," I said, hearing the weight of my own voice. "Some of them were kind. Some were only wishes." She blinked, surprised I remembered how to speak. "I'll give you tonight," she said. "Tomorrow will be practical." After she left the kitchen, I sat at the table and opened a spiral notebook, the cheap kind with a red margin that bosses words into columns. "List what cannot be replaced," I wrote. Then, "find deed." Then, "breathe." The third line was the only one I completed. Odd fact. Part 2. Camphor in lilies can cause headaches if the room is small and grief is large. Or maybe that's not science, just how the afternoon felt. I took my tea to the living room and looked at the photographs that survived every move and repainting. Andrew's first day of school, shoelaces arguing with themselves, his high school graduation smile that already knew how to leave, the picture of the three of us at the county fair, fried dough dusting our shirts like summer snow. I pressed my palm to the glass. The past didn't get warm, but I did. Elder wisdom of the day. When someone tries to evict you from your own life, don't argue in the hallway. Walk into a room with a door and a desk. Paper beats adjectives. Night collected itself outside. I turned on the fan for the soft noise it makes, like a kind person agreeing with you. Somewhere in the house, Sienna opened a drawer she hadn't earned. I let myself make exactly one promise before sleep. I will not be erased. You can't pack a person into a motel if she keeps her name on the deed. 3 last jokes for the night, so my ribs remember how to rise. If grief had a user manual, page 1 would say, "Eat the casserole, ignore the advice." If be reasonable were a sport, I'd retire undefeated. If tea could file motions, my kettle would pass the bar. I didn't sleep. Grief is bad at math. It thinks one night equals a decade. I made tea twice and forgot to drink it both times. At dawn, the house looked briefly like itself, soft, unguarded. Then the front door opened and Sienna's heels recalibrated the morning. She carried a roll of bubble wrap like a prop in a play about efficiency. "I brought boxes," she announced. "Let's make this as painless as possible." "Painless," I repeated, and my voice didn't crack, which felt like passing a private exam. She set the boxes down with the ceremony of a judge swearing in a bailiff. Closets first, sentimental items in one bin, essentials in another. "I booked you a motel by the interstate. Good reviews, no carpets with patterns." She smiled without warmth. "I'll cover it for 2 weeks. Odd fact of the day. Patterned carpets in hotels exist to hide stains. Some designs are so busy they can conceal a comet landing. Grief is like that. Busy patterns, hidden spills." I opened the hall closet and breathed in old cedar, raincoats, and the ghost of Andrew's aftershave. On the top shelf, a blue accordion folder waited the way paperwork waits, patient and superior. I tugged it down. Labels winked up at me. Taxes, keep, insurance, active, house, deed refi. I smiled with a relief I hadn't earned yet and flipped to deed. Empty. For a second, the world borrowed a dimmer switch. Then I laughed. Small, dry. "Maybe I put it somewhere special," I said aloud, which is the same as admitting I put it somewhere impossible. Intellectual aging event of the morning. I found 2 pairs of my glasses in the folder and none of the papers I wanted. I placed the glasses on my head in a crown of humility and kept looking. "Anything?" Sienna called, already in my bedroom, already opening drawers I had closed the day before. "Not yet," I said, "but the deed is recorded at the county. The paper is just a souvenir." She appeared in the doorway, bubble wrap tucked under her arm like a pet snake. "Then perhaps the county will keep you company," she said lightly. "This house is where Andrew pictured our future." Academic phrase of the day: procedural justice. The idea that fairness isn't just about outcomes, but about the process. If we're going to change lives with boxes and bubble wrap, the process should at least be honest. I set aside a small stack. My passport, a locket with a photo of Andrew missing his front tooth, the program from Thomas's funeral, a letter I never mailed. In the bottom of the closet, a shoebox labeled buttons turned out to be keys, 23 of them, none labeled. I held up a tiny brass one gleaming with promise. "Safe deposit?" I wondered aloud. "Or the key to Santa's summer condo," Sienna said, bored. "We'll never know." "We could know," I said, "if I go to the bank." She tilted her head. "Today? Of course. After you pack." 3 jokes for lung maintenance and moral courage. If boxes burned calories, I'd do squats with the wardrobe carton. If missing deeds were a literary genre, they'd outsell romance today. If bubble wrap cured anxiety, psychiatry would include a pop rotation. She handed me a suitcase, as if she were awarding me second place. "Essentials," she said. "I'll send our friend, Mr. Klein," she overpronounced my lawyer's name like it offended her, "a list for the estate meeting. We'll settle assets properly." I looked up sharply. "Arthur is my attorney," I said. "Not an usher." "Of course," she said, voice dipped in politeness. "We all want what's best. Andrew wanted what's best." The name built a room between us. I stepped around it and went to the desk, where I kept stamps and lives that didn't need electricity. In the second drawer, under a rubber band ball the size of a small planet, a note card surfaced. Arthur Klein, deed copy file 2003, refi 2009, call if needed. My own handwriting. My future self sending rope back down the well. "I'm going to the recorder's office," I said, "and the bank, and then to Arthur." "After you check into the motel," she said, smiling like an app notification. I nodded once. "After that," I agreed. Because sometimes you give the wolf a calendar while you quietly build a fence. The packing itself felt like betrayal in slow motion. Every shirt I folded belonged to a version of me that didn't know today existed. I chose 2 dresses, the green cardigan Andrew always called spring, the slippers that forgive bad days, and the kitchen timer shaped like a tomato because hope requires practical tools. I tucked in the locket, the funeral program, the note card with Arthur's name. I put the buttons box of keys in last because sometimes symbolism earns a seat. By mid-morning, Sienna had curated piles everywhere, like a museum of my life. Keep, donate, later. She held up my wedding china. These don't fit the aesthetic, she announced. They fit the memories, I said. Memories are portable, she replied, already setting the box in donate. Elder wisdom of the day. Any sentence that treats your history like a couch should fail inspection. I walked to Andrew's office, the room he had claimed, reclaimed, and left in drafts. The desk was indeed too big, the chair too noble, the bulletin board still stapled with lists written in his sloppy optimism. At the back of a drawer, under a dried-out highlighter and a ticket stub from a game we lost, I found a stamped receipt. County recorder, book, instrument, warranty deed. Not the deed itself, but its echo. Good enough to follow. Downstairs, Sienna had her phone on speaker, talking to someone with a brisk voice about timelines and fresh start and renovation. She spun the dimmer, made the lights too bright. "Do you have toiletries?" she asked, covering the microphone. "Yes," I said. "Phone charger, medications?" "Yes." "Good," she said. I'll call you a car." "I can drive," I said, and caught myself. The keys to my car were in the dish by the door. The dish was gone. "Where's the ceramic bowl?" I asked. She blinked, and for the first time, a seam showed in her performance. "Oh, I moved it. I have the keys, for now, so you don't misplace them." She smiled, all teeth, no apology. Odd fact, second helping, in some ancient houses, keys were as large as small swords. It's harder to steal what you have to drag. I stood very still. "Return my keys," I said, and my tone surprised both of us. She hesitated, then placed them in my palm like a child surrendering contraband. For a second, we were 2 women holding a small piece of metal that had opinions. 2 weeks, she said softly. "I need space. We both do." "I'll take space," I agreed. "I won't take erasure." 3 more jokes, because breath has deadlines. If aesthetic paid rent, my china would own this block. If keys had lawyers, mine would sue for wrongful detainment. If motel art were honest, every painting would be titled, "You'll Be Okay." I zipped the suitcase. The sound was rude and final. I looked around the living room that had been a theater for birthdays and storms, and I memorized it the way you memorize a face you love before the lights go out. Window smudges, sofa dent, plant leaning like a gossip. I took the blue accordion folder, the note card, and the buttons box. I left the casseroles. Love deserves refrigeration. At the door, Sienna stepped aside. "Text me when you're settled," she said, like a landlord. "I'll text you the case number when I file the change of address with the county," I said back, like a woman who had just remembered her own spine. Outside, the day smelled like cut grass and something beginning. I carried the suitcase down the steps, one measured tread at a time. At the curb, I looked up at the windows, open, bright, briefly pretending to be anyone's. "I'll be back," I told the brickwork. The house didn't answer, but the porch light flicked in the breeze like agreement. The car door closed on a soft thud. I placed the folder on my lap and smoothed the label with my thumb. Procedural justice. Process, then outcome. First the recorder's office, then the bank, then Arthur, then sleep maybe. I told the driver the address of a motel with decent reviews and carpets that could confess their stains. Behind us, the house leaned into the afternoon. Ahead, the road made a gentle promise. Follow the signs, bring your own pen. The motel by the interstate had the kind of patterned carpet that was invented to hide entire histories. I set my suitcase on the bedspread with its brave floral print and realized I'd built a small country of denial out of towels and tea bags. For 2 weeks I slept here at night, but my days belonged to public places: benches, libraries, MUS, laundromats, the 24-hour diner with stainless steel optimism. It's cheaper that way, and also, invisibility is easier to carry outdoors. When you sit very still on a park bench with a paper cup of coffee, people look past you as if you're part of city landscaping. Tree, bench, grieving woman, trash can. Odd fact of the day: a lot of county land records still live on microfilm backups stored in limestone caves. Your entire life can be a line of digits resting inside rock that used to be an ocean. Somehow that comforted me. Paper has neighbors. Morning 1, I took the bus to the recorder's office and asked for certified copies of my deed. The clerk wore a sweater in a color that refused to be named and a smile that looked like it had passed a background check. "Book and page?" she asked. I slid over Andrew's old receipt with the instrument number. She nodded, typed, printed, embossed, and then, my favorite part, reached for the metal seal that bites the page into permanence. The crunch sounded like a verdict with manners. Outside, I stood under an anemic tree and held the thick paper up to the light. There it was: Lydia Monroe and Thomas Monroe, joint tenancy with right of survivorship. The letters sat calm and square, unbothered by anyone's adjectives. I bought a folder at the office supply store and wrote on the tab: Deed and dignity. Paper beats adjectives. At the bank, I rented a safe deposit box I could afford for 6 months. The manager, kind without asking for my biography, slid the little drawer toward me like a confession booth. I placed the deed inside with a photocopy, then kept a second certified copy for the lawyer. I also opened a small P.O. box because I wanted my mail to stop learning Sienna's opinions. Elder wisdom of the day: hope is not a plan is hope with pockets. The rest of that week, I learned how to be invisible without losing my outline. Laundromats are warm and forgiving. No one notices if you read while your socks rehearse in circles. Libraries are full of fellow refugees from noise. Grace Park, the head librarian, pretended not to see the way I hovered at the printers with hands that shook. She appeared at my elbow with a 100-page punch. No commentary, just a quiet, "Would you like cardstock for the top sheet?" I did. She set it down like dignity is part of the supply budget. Academic phrase of the day: status quo bias. The instinct to cling to whatever is happening now, even if now is a motel and a backpack and counting bus transfers. It's not apathy. It's your brain being conservative with its remaining furniture. The trick is to move 1 chair a day. Update an address, label a folder, ask a question out loud. I built a little circuit. Morning, recorder, bank, library. Afternoon, park bench, notes, long walks where grief learned it couldn't outrun me. Evening, diner, pie, and Linda's refills delivered with that calm she keeps in a holster. I mapped restrooms like a cartographer of survival. I learned which gas stations sell sandwiches that won't make you reconsider your faith. I carried cash in 3 pockets and my papers in a zippered pouch that lived inside my tote like a heartbeat in a rib cage. 3 jokes scribbled in my notebook to keep the lungs honest. If coffee refills were a pension, I'd retire on Thursday. If benches gave frequent sitter miles, I'd be platinum with a free neck pillow. If grief were a Fitbit, I'd have closed my rings by noon. On day 4, I walked past my own house, the long way, like I was a planet testing gravity. The curtains were open. New lamps glowed like strangers practicing warmth. In the driveway, a contractor's van idled, ladders on top like exclamation points. Through the side window, I saw swatches. Sienna's vision, probably. Color chips that didn't include the memory of jam handprints on the stair rail or the nick in the banister where Andrew's science fair volcano met its limits. I kept walking. If I stopped, I'd turn into a witness the scene didn't deserve. Back at the park, pigeons conducted their endless committee meeting. A toddler announced his manifesto in crayon. An old man fed something invisible to a pawn that believed him. I breathed. The deed copies pressed against my ribs like a promise. When you know a page exists with your name spelled correctly, the air gains calories. At the diner that night, Linda wordlessly slid me a bowl of soup and a slice of lemon pie, then topped my water with the solemnity of a sacrament. "Loved your cardigan yesterday," she said, as if compliments could be receipts. "You headed home soon?" "Soon," I said, "but first I'm learning the bench schedule." She nodded like she knew which benches behaved. "Tuesdays, the park rangers come early. Thursdays, the teenagers practice being louder than they feel." A map offered gently. Sleep improved by degrees. The AC in the motel learned my favorite key. The blankets stopped smelling like strangers. I texted the lawyer's office and scheduled our appointment for the week after the will reading. There would be a will reading, there always is. Grief is old-fashioned that way. I also started a list called What I Keep. The locket, the tomato timer, 3 photographs, a habit of labeling things. The memory of Andrew trying to grow a mustache at 15, like courage, could be composted into hair. Some afternoons I went to the animal shelter and folded towels because the volunteers always need hands, and dogs accept love without inspecting its source. Mabel, brown, elderly, skeptical, allowed me to scratch her ears if I pretended it wasn't my idea. She smelled like biscuits and second chances. I promised her nothing I couldn't keep. That felt important. One evening, I saw Sienna's car glide past the park, windows down, music too confident. She didn't see me. Invisibility has its gifts. But 2 girls on a blanket pointed, whispering the kind of whisper that wants to be overheard. I tasted metal and kept my seat. Maybe Sienna bragged, maybe she didn't. Power always wants an audience. I let the pigeons be my jury, tough but fair. By the second week, the motel desk clerk began to greet me by name without asking for my room number. "You have the aura of someone collecting receipts," he said. Half joke, half blessing. I smiled. "I do," I said, and patted the pouch in my tote like it purrs. Elder wisdom, second serving. You can feel hollow and still be building. Quiet isn't the same as empty. Some days, the only thing I accomplished was carrying myself from one chair to another without dropping my name. That counts. On the last morning of my prepaid stay, my phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. "Will reading, Friday, 2 p.m., Klein & Associates. You should be there." No signature, but the tone wore Sienna's perfume. The address was correct. Arthur would confirm. I stared at the screen until the words lost their edges, then put the phone face down and listened to the AC hum like a grandmother petting your hair. 3 last jokes for a day that needed oxygen. If motel art were honest, it would be titled, "You're doing fine, sweetheart." If printers gave out bravery stickers, I'd have a whole sash by now. If invisible came in sizes, I'd take one that still shows up on cameras. I packed the suitcase again, lighter this time, somehow. The tomato timer went on top like a small red planet that refuses to stop measuring hope. I checked the pockets twice, then a 3rd time. Intellectual aging event satisfied. Papers, keys, wallet, phone, locket. The clerk slid my receipt under the plastic protector, and I added it to the folder because accounting is a way of telling the future you took yourself seriously. At the bus stop, the wind lifted my hair and then set it down with better manners than grief. I looked toward downtown where the law office would be. where pages would be read aloud in that gentle courtroom voice they teach in law school. Slow, neutral, meticulous. I imagined the will like a narrow bridge across water that had decided to be deep. I was ready to cross it with the loudest thing I owned. My name, embossed with a metal bite. The next afternoon, the park smelled like warm grass and hot metal. I'd claimed the same bench as yesterday, the one with peeling green paint and a view of the pond where geese argue like old couples. I balanced a paper cup of coffee on the armrest and unfolded my list, what I keep, adding one more line in pencil. My voice, even when it shakes. I was trying to remember the word for a small metal bottle. Thermos, my brain finally offered. 10 minutes late, but correct. Intellectual aging event achieved. Dignity intact. I didn't see Sienna at first. I heard the sound of intention. A car door slammed too sharply, heels that didn't belong to grass, laughter with corners. When I looked up, she was crossing the path with 2 friends in tow and her phone already lifted, camera open, as if the afternoon had been waiting for her to start. Her sunglasses perched on her head like a crown you rent by the hour. "Well, well," she said, voice bright for the stage. "There you are." "I am," I said, and sipped my coffee because a woman should always be able to finish her sentence or her drink. She angled her phone at me. "This is where you've been staying?" she asked, sweeping the camera across the bench, the tote at my feet, the folder on my lap. "Parks and public places, learning to survive?" Odd fact of the day. Most smartphone photos store EXIF metadata, time, date, sometimes location, little crumbs telling on you if you don't turn them off. I considered explaining that to her, decided to save my breath for oxygen. One of her friends flicked her hair and tried to look casual. The other held a dog the size of a loaf of bread that was unimpressed by all of us. A teenage boy on a skateboard slowed to watch. A runner pretended not to. Audiences arrive quickly when someone rings a bell for shame. Elder wisdom of the day. When a person tries to humiliate you in public, they've accidentally hired witnesses. "Go ahead," I said quietly. "Get your angles." She blinked, not expecting compliance. "You look comfortable," she said, choosing her poison. "I suppose it's freeing not to maintain a house at your age." "There's a house to maintain," I said, keeping my voice even. "I'm giving it a chance to miss me." She laughed too loudly. "Andrew promised me a future in that home. He didn't intend for you to squat in it forever." "Words like squat are for tense and bad decisions," I said, "not for deeds with embossed seals." Her eyes snapped to the folder in my lap. "Deeds?" I opened it, slow as Sunday. The certified copy caught the sun just right. The raised seal bit its little circle into the light. I didn't wave it. I wasn't auditioning for the geese. But I let her see my name spelled out without apology. "The county keeps records even when people misplace their manners," I said. Her jaw tightened. "Paperwork doesn't change the truth." "Sometimes it is the truth," I said gently, "because feelings make terrible clerks." The friend with the loaf dog shifted, suddenly interested in the geese. Sienna dipped her phone toward the folder. I covered it with my hand. "No," I said. "You don't get to use my proof as your content." She dropped the phone to her side, then cocked her head, smile returning to its default setting. Performative. Academic phrase of the day, impression management, the theater of looking good while doing wrong. She was excellent at blocking and terrible at plot. "Anyway," she said, changing tactics. She pulled a white rectangle from her bag and let it hover between us like a snowflake. "Since you insist on being included, here." She flicked the card so it fluttered to the bench beside me. Klein & Associates. Will Reading. Friday, 2 p.m. Wouldn't want you to miss the big moment. "I already got the text," I said. "But thank you for the paper. I collected." She leaned closer, voice dropping sugar. "You know, Lydia, you could make all this easier if you stopped fighting reality. 2 weeks in a motel, then we figure out assisted living, something with a shuttle and crafts. You could be comfortable, safe. Safety is not the same as captivity, I said. In reality, is that I bought that house with my husband, and he died, and my son died, and I am still here with a key. Her sunglasses slid a fraction. The smile's hinges creaked. You think a piece of paper will save you? No, I said. I save me. The paper just makes it faster. Behind her, the skateboarder stopped entirely. You okay, ma'am? He asked, awkward and brave. I'm fine, I told him, and meant it. I turned back to Sienna. Would you like to sit? I was just about to tell the pawn my favorite odd fact. Limestone caves hold microfilm backups of old records, our lives quietly sleeping in rock. She blinked, unprepared for geology. You're unreasonable. Frequently, I said, but only when it helps. 3 jokes to keep my lungs from forgetting their job. If shame were cardio, I'd have my steps for the week. If assisted living meant people helped you find your keys, sign me up on Tuesdays. If impression management needed a choreographer, Sienna could charge by the hour. She straightened. Take the card, she said, as if it were a favor. And don't be late. Arthur's office is very busy. Mine too, I said, patting the folder. Her friends were already retreating, the loaf dog deciding it liked me better. Sienna took 2 steps backward, then 1 forward. One more thing, she said. Don't embarrass yourself on Friday. Don't make a scene. I prefer paper to scenes, I said, and picked up the card with 2 fingers like a specimen you want to keep clean. She turned and walked away, hips set to a tempo, phone already rising, thumbs already working. The skateboarder rolled by slowly and lifted his chin. You handled that like a boss, he said, then, embarrassed by his own kindness, added, Ma'am. Thank you, I said. Go terrorize the geese. He grinned and obeyed. I sat a while longer. The card was heavy stock. The font wanted to be trusted. I traced the letters of Arthur's name and thought about how grief and law both prefer slow nouns to fast adjectives. My coffee had cooled into honesty. I drank it anyway. At the diner, Linda took 1 look at me and brought pie without a menu. Park politics? She asked, topping my water. An attempted matinee, I said. Poor reviews. She snorted. Good, that bench has standards. I showed her the card. She whistled softly. You need anything for Friday? She asked. Just a chair that doesn't wobble, I said, and a pen that doesn't skip. She fetched both from somewhere with the air of a conjurer who specialized in stationery. On the house, she said. I spent the hour after lunch making a timeline. Purchase date, refinance date, tax payments. I could pull from my files the exact instrument number etched into the copy until it felt like a hymn. I added 1 more line to what I keep. Grace under fluorescent lights. On my way back to the motel, the bus smelled like sunscreen and ambition. I kept my tote zipped and my chin forward. The motel clerk looked up when I entered and lifted a hand in salute. You look like a woman with a plan, he said. I have paper, I said. Better, he replied. Back in my room, I placed the card from Sienna beside the certified copy, then set the tomato timer for 12 minutes and lay down with my eyes closed. When it dinged, I sat up, wrote down 3 questions for Arthur and circled them twice. The fan hummed. A delivery truck beeped. The sun leaned west. In the evening, I walked past the animal shelter. Mabel saw me through the glass, pretended not to care, then wagged exactly once. I laughed. Fine, I said to her stern little face. You can keep your dignity, I'll keep mine. I went to bed early, not because I wasn't afraid, but because I had an appointment with my own calm. Tomorrow would bring fluorescent lights and a conference room, and legal pads lined up like little fields. Tonight, I needed sleep the way paper needs a clip. Simple, practical, not the point, and absolutely essential. 3 last jokes for the pillow. If will reading serve popcorn, attendance would triple. If law firms offered ASMR, they'd just mic the stapler. If Dignity had an app, the notification would read, Updates installed. Restart when ready. Friday arrived with the soft authority of a calendar that remembers your appointments even when your courage doesn't. I wore the green cardigan Andrew once called spring, and carried my folder the way some people carry prayer books, close, with clean hands. Klein and Associates lived on the 10th floor of a building that believed in reflections. I could see myself in the elevator doors, hair behaving, mouth set to polite, eyes steadier than yesterday. In the lobby, a ficus staged a quiet revolution against its pot. The receptionist spoke in the controlled piano notes law firms prefer. "Miss Monroe, Arthur will be right with you." Odd fact of the day: legal pads have a 1.25-inch left margin called a downline, originally used so lawyers could jot annotations that didn't bump into the main text. Margins for thoughts. I approve. Sienna swept in 5 minutes late, smelling like citrus and intentions. She wore black as if grief were a dress code and not a weather system. No friends, no entourage, just her. Phone face down, smile sharpened for use. She didn't look at me. Fine. We were here for nouns, not adjectives. Arthur ushered us into a conference room where the fluorescent lights practiced their own ASMR and the stapler on the credenza looked deeply employed. He had the kind of kindness that didn't need volume. "Thank you for coming," he said, then placed a manila file in the exact center of the table. "We'll read Andrew's will and then address any questions." My intellectual aging event of the hour. I blanked on the difference between executor and personal representative, then remembered they're cousins who attend the same parties under different state statutes. I wrote both on my pad anyway, because pens earn their keep by letting you panic quietly. Arthur began, "This is the last will and testament of Andrew J. Monroe, dated 18 months ago. He appoints his wife, Sienna Blake Monroe, as personal representative. He leaves the rest and residue of his probate estate to Sienna." He paused, letting the words be as gentle as they could manage. "There are no specific bequests." Sienna's chin lifted, the small, satisfied movement of a person whose script is proceeding on time. Arthur turned a page. "However, and this is important, the will only governs probate assets. Property passing by operation of law or with designated beneficiaries does not pass under the will. For example, life insurance with a named beneficiary, retirement accounts, joint tenancy property with right of survivorship." She glanced at me, mouth readying an argument. Arthur slid a second folder toward her. "Here's the preliminary inventory. Andrew's probate estate consists of a checking account with a nominal balance, a vehicle subject to a lien, and household goods." He looked up, measured. "There are outstanding liabilities, medical bills, 2 credit cards, and a personal line of credit. The estate appears insolvent. Academic phrase of the day, priority of claims. The order in which creditors stand in line when the pie is too small. Today's pie wouldn't feed a rumor." Sienna blinked. "Insolvent? That can't be right. What about the house?" "The house," Arthur said calmly, "is not part of Andrew's probate estate." He lifted a certified copy with the county's metal bite still impressed like a thumbprint. "Title shows Lydia Monroe and Thomas Monroe, joint tenants with right of survivorship. Upon Thomas's death, title vested fully in Lydia. Andrew never held title." I didn't need to flourish my copy. I set it beside his, the seals like 2 coins on a patient's eyes. "Paper beats adjectives," I said softly, "every time." Sienna's smile fissured. "Andrew lived there. He said, he promised, we would build our future there." "Promises," Arthur said, kind but immovable, "are not instruments. Deeds are instruments. The county recorder agrees with Lydia." She swallowed, anger arriving in careful installments. "Then what, I get nothing?" "The estate will pay creditors first," he said. "If anything remains, which is unlikely, it would pass under the will. Your counsel is welcome to review the file and submit any documentation. She reached for volume. He wanted me safe. Elder wisdom of the day. Love can want many good things. Law demands a signature. I kept my voice level. You can be safe without my house. Those are independent variables. Arthur pivoted to practical. There is also the question of possession. Miss Monroe, to me, you remain the owner of record. If you wish to regain exclusive possession, that's a civil process, not probate. We can discuss after. Sienna let out a laugh that aimed for dismissive and landed on desperate. So Lydia kicks me out onto the street? That's what we're doing now. Elder revenge? Process, Arthur said, not taking the bait. Not revenge. 3 jokes slipped through my mind to keep the room breathable. If estates had tip jars, creditors would be the baristas. If feelings could pay liens, we'd all be mortgage-free. If staplers were therapists, this credenza would have a wait list. Sienna tried again, recalibrating to pity. I gave up so much for Andrew. Deserving is not a deed, I said, still soft. It's a story. Deeds are the part that gets embossed. Arthur slid a thin stack toward us. These are notices to known creditors. The publication schedule runs 3 weeks. You'll see the insolvency projection on page 3. He faced Sienna with the respect due to any human sitting in a storm. This is a hard day, but our job is to place facts where feelings can't move them. She stared at the paper and found no leverage. Her hand trembled when she signed the receipt for copies. For a moment, I saw the woman beneath the performance, tired, scared, furious at a universe that didn't rearrange itself for her choreography. It didn't excuse anything. It explained a little. Arthur turned to me. Would you like us to record a memorandum of title in addition to your certified copies? It's not required, but sometimes clarity is kind. Please, I said. Clarity is my new religion. He nodded. We can also draft a notice to vacate, compliant with local law. A reasonable window, documented delivery. Sienna snapped her gaze up. You can't make me leave. We won't make you, Arthur said. We'll follow the statute. Process again. I exhaled, not triumph, just oxygen. My hands found my pen and underlined a line on my pad I'd written this morning. Grace under fluorescent lights. Still true. Still possible. Odd fact. Second helping. In some jurisdictions, the yellow legal pad really is yellow to reduce eye strain under fluorescent bulbs. I like to think of it as sunshine smuggled into rooms that forget windows. Sienna stood abruptly, chair legs scolding the carpet. We're not done, she said. We're begun, I corrected gently. In the hallway, she caught up to me, voice low and shaped like a blade. You'll regret humiliating me. I regret many things, I said, meeting her eyes. Protecting my home is not on that list. She glanced at the deed copy in my hand and laughed once, the sound small and sharp. Fine. Enjoy your little victory. This isn't little, I said. It's square footage. Back in the lobby, the receptionist slid me a bottle of water with the same care she might give a newborn. You did fine, she murmured, rule-breaking kindly. I wanted to hug her and also the ficus. Outside, the afternoon had the decency to be ordinary. Traffic muttered. A bus exhaled. I stood under a sky the exact color of my cardigan and let my bones register that the ground, despite everything, still held. I walked to the diner because ritual is a spine. Linda spotted me and poured coffee without waiting for a nod. Well? Paper won, I said. Paper always does, she replied, setting down lemon bars like exhibits. I told her the short version. She listened without editing, which is rarer than it should be. When I finished, she tapped the table twice. What next? Process, I said, smiling at the word that had carried me all morning. We draft a notice, we give time, we keep records, we go home. 3 last jokes to end a fluorescent day. If process had a lullaby, it would be sung by a stapler. If clarity were a scented candle, I'd burn embossed seal till spring. If margins could talk, mine would say, "You're doing great. Keep writing. That night in the motel, I put the certified copy back in its plastic sleeve, then slipped a photo of 12-year-old Andrew into the same pocket. Shoelaces untied, grin unstoppable. I whispered to the boy inside the paper, "I am still your mother. I am keeping the house ready for your memory in my sleep." The fan hummed yes. The AC agreed. Somewhere, even the stapler exhaled. Morning came like a clerk with good posture, on time, tidy, ready to stamp things. I ironed the green cardigan because ritual steadies my hands, then walked back to Arthur's office with a folder that now had the quiet weight of certainty. The receptionist greeted me with the kind of smile that doesn't waste syllables. "Conference B," she said, and slid a fresh legal pad across the counter. Sunshine smuggled under fluorescent lights. Arthur had already lined up the tools. A notice to vacate drafted to the comma, a proof of service form, and a paralegal named Denise who treated punctuation like guardrails. "We'll keep this relentlessly proper," he said, tapping the margin. 30 days notice, documented delivery, no surprises. Academic phrase of the day. Notice, an opportunity to be heard. Due process is not a mood, it's a map. He walked me through each paragraph. Owner of record, me. Premises. My street, my number, the square footage that knows my footsteps. Date by which possession must be surrendered. 30 days from noon today. Noon chosen, because clocks like decisive nouns. We added a line offering a walkthrough and a forwarding address for any mail still pretending to be Andrew's. Denise slid the pages to me like dealing a hand she'd like me to win. I signed with careful letters. My name looked like it had learned Pilates. Odd fact of the day. In many counties, a civil process server can use substitute service. Hand the papers to a competent adult at the home and then mail a copy, because laws know doors develop selective hearing. Denise already had a server on the calendar. "His name's Victor," she said. "He wears beige and inevitability." Before I left, Arthur asked if I wanted to record a memorandum of title as an extra belt over the suspenders. "Clarity is kind," he said, and I nodded. Denise stamped and clipped and breathed purpose into each page. The stapler purred like a cat that passed the bar. I hesitated in the doorway. "There's one more thing," I said, tasting the sentence before I served it. "For years, I let people assume I was comfortable enough, but not secure. It made life quieter. The truth is the opposite. After Thomas died, I kept the house, paid it off, and then bought small places when I could. 1 duplex, 2 little houses on a street that used to be cheap and now thinks it's fancy. They're modest, good bones, rented to school teachers and a retired nurse who bakes more muffins than any law allows." I smiled. I didn't hide it out of shame. I hid it because privacy protects truth. Arthur's eyebrows did a small, respectful climb. "You've done well," he said, and didn't turn it into advice, which I appreciated. "Do you want that in a trust?" "Eventually," I said. "Right now I want it in my spine." Back at the diner, Linda set down coffee like a benediction. "You have that look," she said. "The one where paper beat adjectives." I showed her the top page, the date circled twice. 30 days, I said, kind and exact. She topped my cup. "Kindness without a stopwatch becomes martyrdom," she murmured. "Good for you." At noon, Victor Beige met me a block from the house. He was exactly as Denise promised. Polite, neutral, shoe soles that didn't squeak. "You can wait here," he said. "I'll do the ballet." He walked up the steps like an usher who'd seen everything. I watched from the shade of a maple that remembered Andrew's rope swing. Through the open window, I heard the cadence of paperwork meeting performance. Sienna answered. Her voice tried hauteur, landed on hoarse. "What is this?" "Notice to vacate. Victor said, tone neither cruel nor apologetic. 30 days? A copy will also arrive by mail. You can't just... The sentence failed to find a verb. Service completed, he said, more to the universe than to her, and turned with the dignity of a man who has never chased a scene. He passed me the sign proof like a relay baton. Mail goes out within the hour, he said. Beige, inevitable. I didn't approach the house. I let the door stay a door. Process works better than dramatics. 3 jokes whispered into the tree's patient leaves, so my lungs remembered they have a union. If inevitability had a dress code, it would be beige. If staplers were clergy, today counted as a service. If calendars gave out medals, mine would read, showed up at noon. Back at the motel, I made 2 calls. First to Miss Patel at the bank. Keep the P.O. box on all accounts. Add a note to require in-person ID with a callback script for any urgent change. She said my code word with the same care a priest says Amen. Second to my insurance agent, verify the homeowner's policy, add a rider for vacancy during turnover, schedule a rekey on day 31. The hold music tried to make me calmer than I already was. Elder wisdom of the day, peace isn't luck, it's a maintenance plan with labels. That evening, I walked to Grace Park's library. She'd taped a sign to the community board. Estate and Housing Basics. Free clinic Thursday, 6 p.m. I added a sticky note underneath. Bring a folder. Bring your name. Paper beats adjectives. Grace gave me the librarian's wink. 1 eye, maximum meaning, and slid me a few empty tab dividers. For your next chapters, she said. On day 2, Sienna texting began. You're heartless. I'm grieving too. This is elder abuse. Then, a pivot. If you loan me the house for 6 months, I'll leave quietly. I typed 1 sentence and copied it to a note so my fingers could paste calm whenever panic visited. Please communicate through counsel. The notice is compliant. I wish you healing. I pressed send, then turned the phone face down like it needed a nap. Intellectual aging event of the afternoon. For 10 minutes, I couldn't remember the word escrow. You know, the little waiting room where money sits with a magazine until paperwork catches up. It came back while I was rinsing a cup. I dried my hands and wrote it on an index card because triumph deserves ink. On day 5, a contractor I recognized from the van sent me a photo. Sienna's vision board. Open shelves, an island that would block the sunlight, paint strips named things like Cloud Whisper and Intentional Grace. She told us to start next week, he texted. I replied, work is paused. Owner has not authorized changes. He sent a thumbs up that looked like a man relieved not to carry someone else's impatience. Odd fact, second helping. In most places, you cannot legally renovate a home you don't own without the owner's consent, no matter how visionary your Pinterest board is. The law likes nouns, owner, consent, permit. By day 7, I stopped flinching when my phone buzzed. Sienna's messages dwindled, then spiked, then dwindled again. The sine wave of someone who still believes volume will teach paper to blink. I kept my responses identical, the textual equivalent of a laminar flow, smooth, steady, unable to be provoked. Linda read one over my shoulder and whistled. You're a metronome, she said. Bless you. On day 10, Arthur called. 2 updates, he said. Memorandum of title recorded, and your notice to vacate was mailed certified, green card signed. He paused. Lydia, I want you to hear this. You're doing this correctly. It landed in my chest like a warm stone. Thank you, I said, because I am from a generation that still sends thank you notes, and because praise, when specific, repairs things you didn't know were torn. That weekend, I did something reckless. I drove past my other properties. The duplex on Juniper had marigolds by the steps, courtesy of Mrs. Alvarez, who once taught 2nd grade and never stopped using stickers. The bungalow on Birch wore a new mailbox like a crown, The little house on Pine had a tricycle tipped in the yard and chalk galaxies on the walk. I parked and just let my hands steer the steering wheel of memory. Privacy isn't secrecy, I reminded myself again. It's stewardship with a dimmer switch. When I got back to the motel, the clerk had taped a note to the counter. You have mail? P.O. Box forward. Inside a brown envelope, I found a utility change of service request with my name misspelled and Sienna's email typed where mine should be. I felt my pulse do arithmetic. I emailed Arthur and scanned the form. He wrote back, "Good catch. Keep copies. We'll loop in Detective Reyes if it escalates." A new name. A future chapter. I set the envelope in my folder under a tab I labeled Attempts. Not today's fight, but a breadcrumb. 3 more jokes for the evening's ribcage. If beige were an emotion, it would be served at noon. If due process had a playlist, it would be 90 minutes of stapler clicks. If laminar flow were a personality, I'm auditioning. On day 15, Victor Beige delivered a second copy for good measure and mailed another. By then, the neighborhood had learned to wave at him. Inevitability makes friends. Sienna's car still came and went, sometimes music, sometimes silence. I didn't peer through hedges. I let the calendar do the talking. The morning of day 30, I brewed motel coffee that tasted like optimism, filtered through stubbornness, and packed my suitcase. Lighter than the last time. Heavier than it needed to be. I put the tomato timer on top like a red planet that knows when to ring. Then I drove to my street at 11:50 a.m., parked under the maple that still kept Andrew's secrets, and waited. At 12:04, the door opened. A mover carried a box marked Misk Kitchen. Sienna emerged last, sunglasses on, face set to neutral like a weather app lying about sun. She didn't look at me. I didn't require it. Victor checked his watch. "Possession?" he asked. "Possession?" I echoed. He handed me a form. I signed. The pen didn't skip. I walked up the steps. The key turned with the sigh of a house that had decided to forgive. Inside, the air was a little wrong. Too much citrus, too little us. But rooms remember their true owners the way dogs do. Cautious at first, then embarrassingly affectionate. I set my folder on the entry table, opened the windows, and let the afternoon come in like a nurse with better light. The notice period had ended. The plan had held. The house and I had both refused erasure. Elder wisdom, last serving for today. Mercy is not the absence of boundaries. It's the way you draw them without carving scars. I stood in the kitchen, hand on the counter where flour once drifted down like snow through laughter. My phone buzzed. Arthur. "All done. Welcome home." I texted Linda a single word, lemon, and she replied with a picture of a pie already in the oven. Grace sent a thumbs up emoji that somehow smelled like paper and hope. I set the tomato timer for 12 minutes. Not because anything needed baking, but because some victories want a chime. Then I walked room to room, naming things quietly. Sofa, lamp, window, picture frame. Like I was teaching a very old, very beloved house its words again. The house greeted me with a draft that smelled like dust, lemon cleaner, and history waking up. I opened every window I could bribe into cooperation. The curtains breathed, the floors creaked their old confessions. At 12:31 p.m., right on schedule, the locksmith arrived. A man named Rico, with 4 arms like competence. He tipped his cap to the house the way some people salute flags. "Recce the lot?" he asked. "Front, back, garage," I said. "And the side door that thinks it's special?" He smiled. "We'll humble it." Odd fact of the day, rekeying doesn't replace the lock. It replaces the tiny pins inside, so the old key becomes a story, not a tool. My front door exhaled when the new key turned clean. I swear it did. While Rico worked, I walked room to room with a legal pad labeled Condition on Possession. The citrus was still too loud, the light too white, but the bones were mine. Sienna had moved more than furniture. She tried to move the feeling too. On the kitchen island, I found a vision board, rolled like a scroll. Open shelving, a waterfall countertop that would drown the afternoon sun, cabinets painted a color named Mindful Fog. Mindful for whom, exactly? I took photos, printed them on the new home printer I'd bought that morning, hello, small victories, and slid them into a folder labeled Pinterest versus Permit. Academic phrase of the day, reactance, the impulse to push back harder when someone tries to control you. I let the page sit in my palm until the impulse passed. Control wouldn't build this house back. Process would. By 2, Rico had taught every door a new name. He showed me how the pins lined up like compliant soldiers. I paid, tipped heavily, and wrote his invoice number on my timeline because paper is the best kind of memory. Then I changed the Wi-Fi password from Andrew Forever to Rosemary and Pie, which felt both accurate and forgettable. Extended the camera retention window and reset the garage code to the year Thomas proposed. Predictable kindness, but for electronics. At 3, I boxed what Sienna had left behind. A yoga mat with opinions, 3 candles named things like Clean Linen's cousin. A stack of magazines about intentional living that never mentioned other people's deeds. And exactly 5 vials of serum that promised to erase 20 years like they were pencil marks. I photographed each box, numbered them, and made a transmittal sheet. Chain of custody, personal effects, elder wisdom of the day. Mercy is best served with documentation. My intellectual aging event arrived right on cue. I was standing in the bathroom trying to remember the word for that white paste you squeeze into cracks so the wall forgets where it split. Spackle, I told the mirror triumphantly, and then realized I meant caulk. I wrote both on an index card and taped it inside the cabinet. Spackle easels walls, caulk easel seams, dignity intact, vocabulary supervised. At 4, a car door closed in the driveway the way a period ends a sentence. I checked the camera. Sienna, alone. Sunglasses, like armor, jaw, set to litigation. I stepped onto the porch and closed the door behind me. Boundaries can wear hinges. She stopped at the foot of the steps. I forgot a few things, she said, voice even. I packed the personal effects you left, I answered, calm and present. They're labeled and photographed. I'm happy to set them on the porch for pickup at a time we both choose. Or we can schedule a walkthrough with counsel present. I'll just come in and get them, she said, moving toward the steps. I don't consent to entry, I said, tone not unkind. Please coordinate through Arthur's office. It keeps everyone honest. Her mouth flattened. You think paper will save you twice? No, I said. I think we will save ourselves by using paper once. She laughed without humor. You're addicted to process. Process is what keeps us from duels, I said, and from Pinterest disasters. I lifted the folder just enough for the tab to show. By the way, starting work without the owner's consent is a code violation. Your contractor texted me that he'd been told to start. I've paused all work and notified the permit desk. Her eyes flickered. Surprise, then calculation. You're ridiculous. Frequently, I said. But I read the municipal code, and I keep receipts. She shifted tactics. The utilities are already in my name. I held her gaze. You submitted a change of service request with my name misspelled. The utility flagged it when I called. I've documented the attempt and added it to a folder labeled Attempts. If it escalates, Detective Reyes will be looped in. The pause wasn't long, but it was honest. A bird made a rude comment from the maple. Sienna reset her face to indifferent. You've been preparing speeches. I've been preparing my home, I said. There's a difference. She looked past me at the living room. For a split second, the glass gave us both back. Me, small but vertical, her, sleek but blurred by light. She sighed, a sound like a tire choosing deflation. Fine, put the boxes out. I'll bring them to the porch, I said. Would you like a receipt listing contents? Why do you talk like a clerk? She sounded tired now, less blade, more bone. Because clerks keep the world from falling apart, I said softly. And because when people are hurting, nouns help more than adjectives. I returned with 2 boxes and the inventory sheet. She signed without looking, then hesitated with her hand on the second box. Andrew wanted me safe, she said, not quite asking permission to believe it. He wanted many good things, I said. Wanting isn't a deed, and love isn't a lease. You can be safe without this house. I can be safe with it. She swallowed. Do you hate me? 3 jokes floated up, then sat down politely. I answered the truth. No. I hate what grief turned us into. Something unclenched in her shoulders, then re-knotted. You're not who I expected, she admitted. Neither are you, I said. But here we are, 2 women on a porch, both trying not to drown. She lifted the boxes, sunglasses hiding whatever the day had decided she could spare. We're not done, she said, out of habit. We can be, I said, and meant it. Please route anything further through council. After her taillights blinked out, the porch remembered how to be wood again. I stood there a moment, the new key warm in my palm, the house breathing through its windows. Inside, I set the kettle on, muscle memory with steam, and wiped the island as if crumbs could be a kind of absolution. I emailed Arthur. Personal effects delivered curbside, inventory attached, no entry granted. Noted attempted utility change documented. He replied with a sentence that felt like a hand steadying the small of my back. Perfect. Keep going exactly like this. I printed no work authorized signs and taped them near outlets where contractors like to plug in the future. Then I sat at the table and wrote a small card to myself. You did not win. You withstood. I tucked it under the tomato timer because small red planets keep secrets. 3 jokes for the evening air because ribs enjoy company. If process had a love language, it would be return receipt requested. If Pinterest required permits, most kitchens would still have ceiling fans. If vocabulary came with a user guide, mine would start, spackle equals soil walls, caulk equals seams. I walked the perimeter, locks, windows, the garage that no longer tried to act important, and turned off lights one by one. The house settled. So did I. Tomorrow, I'd call the insurance company to remove the vacancy rider, move my clothes back from the motel, and let the rosemary plant adjudicate the afternoon sun. Tonight, I would practice being home by sleeping in my bed and dreaming ordinary dreams. Groceries, library books, someone asking how I take my tea and meaning it. I turned the fan to low. The room hummed in a key my bones remembered. Paper on the entry table, pen by the phone, kettle ready. Boundaries drawn without carving scars. The night stepped over the threshold like it owned the place, and for once, I invited it in. The next morning, had that breakable quiet old houses keep for people they still recognize. I put the kettle on and reached for the glass pitcher I use for sun tea, only to realize I couldn't remember the word for it. Decanter? Carafe? My brain shuffled its flashcards and finally coughed up pitcher, plain as bread. Intellectual aging event completed, dignity intact. I laughed into the steam and told the kitchen, "You're stuck with me and my vocabulary." The small brass key from the buttons box sat on the counter, winking like an idea. I'd rented a safe deposit box last week for the deed. This key wasn't to that one. Andrew had kept a little lockbox in his office once, then moved it somewhere better. Better, it turns out, was the bank vault I'd walked past twice. I called ahead. The clerk said, "If it's yours, the box will know," which sounded like folklore and also like customer service.
Odd fact of the day. Bank vaults have time locks that don't care about panic. They open in a set window, even if the manager sings show tunes. Hollywood gets this wrong on purpose.
In a room that felt like a library from metal, the attendant slid box 314 toward me. The brass key turned with the relieved humility of a thing finally used for its job. Inside, a blue envelope, Mom written in Andrew's reckless handwriting, a thumb drive with the word taxes on masking tape, a Polaroid of us at the county fair dusted with powdered sugar in 1998. I sat. The chair was the polite kind that doesn't squeak when grief does.
I didn't read the whole letter at once. I read in sips. The way you teach a skittish animal to trust a hand. Andrew wrote about money the way people write about weather. He didn't want me to worry, so he lied by omission. He wrote about Sienna the way a smart man writes when he's trying to negotiate with his own hope. Mom, I know you're private. I brag about you anyway. She thinks you're fragile. You're the only person I know who can lift a house with a binder clip. Then the part he never said aloud. Sometimes she's so unkind about you, I can feel the room getting smaller. I called Arthur for a consult about a friend. He said to put things in writing, to name my boundary. I told Sienna if she ever pushes you out of that house, I'm gone. The rest was ordinary, complaints about the minutiae of adulthood, a line about missing dad at tax time, a joke about my tomato timer being NASA for casseroles.
The tone was Andrew's clearest voice, not the one he used when he wanted peace at any price.
Academic phrase of the day. Cognitive reappraisal. The practice of choosing a truer story on purpose. Mine shifted in that bank chair. My son hadn't abandoned me. He'd been fighting a quiet war between kindness and choreography. I cried there, the contained kind, the way you cry when strangers can see your shoes under a door. It didn't drown me. It rinsed me. I slid the letter back in the envelope, wrote the date on the flap because paper is a compass, and tucked the envelope behind the deed in my safe deposit box like two hands agreeing to hold. Back home, the kettle's second song greeted me. I made tea, opened windows, and let the house air out both citrus and superstition. The phone buzzed, a voice memo from Sienna. Not text, voice. I pressed play and set the phone face down because truth is easier to swallow when you're not staring at it. She spoke fast at first, then slower, then like someone trying to convince herself she was just leaving a note, not stepping out of a role. Andrew told me you had more than you let on, she said, breath catching on a more. He said you were private because people take when they smell plenty. I hated how that made me feel, small, outside. I told myself I deserved the house because I loved him. I told myself you'd never let go unless I made you. He almost left me once. He said if I ever made you feel unsafe, he was done. I didn't believe him. I thought I could change the ending if I controlled the middle. Silence tightened around the edges. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I needed you to know he wasn't blind. Elder wisdom of the day. Confession isn't a coupon. You don't trade it for anything. But sometimes it is a hinge the door needed. I didn't reply. Not yet. I saved the memo in a folder labeled Records because feelings shouldn't be in charge of filing. Then I went to the sink, ran the water until it ran clean, and let myself finally weep. Not like a storm, but like a field, slow, wide, leaving room for new roots. I cried for Andrew's careful boundary, for the part of me that had mistaken his silence for dismissal, for a house that had held its breath so long the walls were chapped. 3 jokes, taped to my ribs, so breath remembered how to work. If tomato timers awarded diplomas, mine would read Cognitive Reappraisal with Honors. If vaults took suggestions, I'd ask them to open early for mothers. If binders counted as gym equipment, I'd be training for a decathlon. I forwarded the memo to Arthur with a single line. For the file. No reply needed. He wrote back 5 minutes later. Lawyers have a sixth sense for inflammable sentences. Received. Good judgment. The calm in his punctuation could anchor ships. I took the thumb drive labeled Taxes to Grace Park at the library because some things you open with a witness. If it's just spreadsheets, I'll act surprised, she said, then made me a cup of the tea the librarians keep for small emergencies. On the monitor, folders bloomed like mild-weather trees, business expenses, receipts, health, and one called Mom Plus House. Inside were scans of emails to Arthur about putting the house in a trust. After the wedding chaos, a draft boundary letter to Sienna he never sent, and a selfie Andrew took in my kitchen the week before Cabo. Flour on his sweater from trying to make my biscuit recipe without me. Tried to make them light like you do. They came out honest, but heavy. My laugh surprised us both. Odd fact, second helping, pencils contain graphite, not lead. We call it lead because we like to keep mistakes historic. It felt right, writing Andrew's name on a sticky note with something that never was what we said it was. Grace slid a box of tissues closer like a librarian moves a bookmark, neatly, without comment. What will you do with all this? She asked finally. Make it precise, I said, not vindictive. Precise. Cognitive reappraisal again, this time with tabs. On the walk home, the sun made lace through the maple leaves, the kind of light that forgives dust for existing. I stood on the porch and let the house measure me like a tailor. We're okay, I told it, and the porch didn't argue. Sienna texted while I was labeling files. Thank you for not posting my message. I half expected to see it online. I responded with the sentence I keep for dangerous days. Please communicate through counsel. I wish you healing. She sent back a period, which felt less like punctuation and more like an exhale. The phone rang again. Unknown number. Miss Monroe? Detective Alan Reyes. He had the voice of a man who stays for the paperwork. Your attorney forwarded utility change attempts with your name misspelled. It's likely nothing that can't be handled with a few good forms, but I'd like to take a statement and put a fraud alert on file. Also, and here his tone did a small human thing. Welcome home. Academic phrase of the day. Procedural memory. The way your body remembers steps after your mind stops narrating them. I found myself pulling a chair to the desk, reaching for the good pen, opening a fresh pad. The house and I were learning our choreography again. Before dinner, I added 2 lines to What I Keep, Andrew's true voice. My capacity to choose a kinder story without lying to myself. Then I set the tomato timer for 12 minutes and made biscuits. Not perfect, not light as my son wanted, but honest as a Wednesday. I ate one at the sink and saved the rest for the people who keep showing up with good pens. 3 last jokes for the night shift. If justice had a sound, it might be a vault opening and a kettle starting at the same time. If grief issued receipts, today I'd deduct the tissues. If boundaries were biscuits, you'd know they were right when they held their shape without getting hard. The fan hummed me toward sleep. In the hallway, the pictures kept their quiet watch. The house breathed easier. Me too. The next weeks unfurled like a checklist that had been waiting in my bones. Detective Reyes took my statement in an office that smelled like copier toner and a good mop. He's the kind of man who lets silence do paperwork. We have the utility change attempt, the misspelled name on the form, and your attorney's certified notices, he said, tapping each item like a metronome. If there are more attempts, credit, mail forward, anything, send them. Process builds cases. Academic phrase of the day, evidentiary chain. How proof holds hands from moment to moment so no one can accuse it of wandering off. We gave every file a chaperone. Meanwhile,
life wanted feeding. I kept walking past the shelter to see Mabel, the senior dog with eyebrows drawn by a poet. The volunteers were drowning in puppies. Everyone once knew, but the older dogs floated in place, waiting for a kindness big enough to lift them. One afternoon, I held Mabel's leash and said to Grace Park, "If love had a lobby, it would smell like oatmeal and disinfectant."
Grace tucked a pen behind her ear. "You have empty property on Birch," she said, not a question. It used to be a yoga studio with very earnest mirrors.
"I could turn it into something quieter," I said. "A landing pad for gray muzzles."
She smiled. "Then let's print forms." Odd fact of the day. Senior dogs are adopted at less than half the rate of younger dogs, yet their cortisol drops within minutes when an older human pets them. It's as if both nervous systems remember the same lullaby. By the time the rosemary outside my kitchen found the sun's habit, we had a name, Harbor House, and a file box with tabs that made me feel rich. Lease, insurance, zoning, grant apps, volunteers. Arthur helped me set up a small charitable LLC. Simple governance, liability contained, dreams allowed. Miss Patel opened a separate account. Linda from the diner promised coffee vouchers for volunteers, and Grace printed a flyer that looked like it had always been on the library corkboard. "Zoning?" I asked at City Hall, trying not to let fluorescent lights undo me. "Conditional use," the clerk said kindly, sliding across a packet thicker than a stubborn sundae. "You'll need a site plan, occupancy load, and a waste plan. Neighbors must be notified." "Neighbors like muffins," I replied, and she didn't disagree. Elder wisdom of the day. The opposite of bitterness is stewardship. We scrubbed the Birch Street space until it forgot yoga ever happened there. The mirrors came down with a sigh. The walls took a coat of paint called soft weather that looked like morning doing its best. Rico the locksmith rekeyed the door. We're not letting inevitability in without an appointment. And I ordered rubber mats that smelled like gym class and hope. The first night, Mabel tip-tapped across the floor, nails like quiet punctuation. She sniffed the corner, approved the water bowls, tested a bed, and decided the room belonged to her eyebrows. 3 jokes I wrote on the dry erase board to keep the volunteers breathing. If rescue paperwork were Pilates, our course would be testimonials. If donors asked for ROI, I'd show them a nap. If gray muzzles were a tax credit, we'd all itemize. Detective Reyes called while I was labeling bins. "We have 2 new data points," he said. "A credit application for a store card in your name, declined, thankfully, and an attempted USPS mail forward flagged by your P.O. box, both digital. Same IP address range as the utility attempt." He paused. "We'll interview Miss Blake, calmly." "Calmly," I repeated, grateful for the kind of man who doesn't sell drama retail. At Harbor House, the neighbor kids peered through the window and learned to be quiet the way people learn a second language, by trying, messing up, and trying again. Linda delivered a tray of lemon bars that bent the air toward mercy. Mrs. Alvarez from my duplex brought retired blankets and a lecture on proper folding no one asked for but everyone needed. I made a laminated chore chart because laminated things refuse to surrender. We held our soft opening on a Sunday so God could clap too. 2 seniors came in from a rescue partner across the river. Duke, a lab with a limp, and Sugar, a small dog whose name was also a suggestion. We weighed, bathed, and recorded. I wrote new beginnings on the clipboard and circled it twice. When Duke laid his head on my knee, I felt some internal ledger reconcile. Debits and credits of grief and grace finding their columns. That afternoon, Reyes texted, "Interview scheduled. I'll keep you posted." I told Paper before I told anyone else, because Paper can't gossip. Odd fact. Second course, oxytocin, the so-called bonding hormone, rises in both humans and dogs after 5 minutes of mutual staring. We tried it. Mabel blinked slow. I blinked slower. I swear, my blood pressure took a seat. On Wednesday, A woman from the neighborhood zoning panel visited. She wore flats that meant business and lipstick that suggested kindness wasn't negotiable. "This is peaceful," she said, taking in the lamps, the quiet corners, the stack of books. Nobody would judge you for reading twice. "It's all joy," I said. "We're just rearranging it." She looked at the posting, our occupancy load framed as if it were art. "We like citizen miracles," she said, signing the inspection form with panache. Arthur dropped by with file folders, and I showed him the Harbor House ledger, donations, expenses, a note that said, "Do not buy 10 leashes just because they're on sale." He chuckled. "You run this like you run your life, calm with receipts." "Shall I embroider that on a pillow?" I asked. "Not until you nap," he said, "because some lawyers practice medicine on the side." The call from Reyes came Friday morning, the day the rosemary bloomed tiny purple flags. His voice carried that steady tone I had learned to prefer over excitement. "We obtained a warrant," he said. "Digital evidence, patterns of attempted identity fraud, and the utility change documentation. We arrested Miss Blake this morning on 2 misdemeanor counts and 1 felony count pending charging decisions. She was calm. That helps everyone." I set my hand on the counter to steady the part of me that wanted to float. "Thank you," I said. "Not for the cuffs, but for the competence." He went on, careful. "This is about accountability, not spectacle. Likely outcome is probation, restitution, and a class on identity theft consequences. If you want to write a victim impact statement, I'll give you guidelines." Academic phrase of the day: restorative justice, repairing harm with acknowledgments and actions instead of extracting pain for sport. I told him I'd write. He said, "Keep it about impacts, not adjectives." Exactly my dialect. I sat at the table with my good pen and made tea because ritual waters the truth. Then I wrote, "I'm not asking for punishment. I'm asking for teaching. Fraud is not victimless. It makes elders afraid of their mail and of the phone. It steals evening from houses that should be settling into soup and books. Please help Miss Blake learn to put her hands to better work than forms with other people's names on them. I wish her healing. I wish our city more clerks and fewer performances." I printed it, signed it, and put it in a folder labeled Impact. Then I set the tomato timer for 12 minutes and peeled carrots because Harbor House had a visiting hour and Duke likes to watch cooking like it's a sacred sport. Sienna's attorney emailed, polite, necessary, correct. "Miss Blake will not contact you directly. She recognizes the process. She will stipulate to a no-contact condition if required." I replied, "Thank you. Please route any property questions through Arthur. We all type like adults in a world where typing can save time." 3 jokes for courage before court dates start claiming weekdays. If justice were ASMR, it would be a judge saying, "So ordered," very softly. If boundary setting were cardio, my Fitbit would ask me to sit down. If oxytocin were a fundraiser, gray muzzle eye contact would be our gala. That evening, we held our first Harbor House quiet hour. We turned the lights low, put on a fan for white noise, and gave everyone a blanket with a history. Duke snored like a man entitled to peace. Mabel arranged herself with the dignity of a librarian. Sugar discovered the exact ratio of lap to dog and filed the discovery under joy. I sat on the floor, back to the wall, and remembered Andrew's line about my binder clip lifting a house. Harbor House wasn't a heroic gesture. It was a binder clip on a block of a city where loneliness thinks it owns things. Elder wisdom of the day: mercy without boundaries becomes chaos. Boundaries without mercy become a museum. We were aiming for a home. When I got back, the porch smelled like night and rosemary. In the mailbox, a single envelope. The city's final occupancy approval for Harbor House. The signature sloped like a person happy to write it. I held it up to the porch light, let the embossed seal bite the page, and felt something in my chest unclench again. I went inside, set the paper on the entry table beside the deed and Andrew's letter, and whispered to the house, "We're doing it." The walls answered in wood language: settle, creak, breathe. I turned off the lights, left the fan on low, and promised the night we would keep this pace. Steady, boring, generous. The sentencing hearing felt different from the will reading. Less fluorescent, more human. There were fewer suits, more sweaters. I'd ironed my green cardigan because ritual is my religion. Detective Reyes nodded when I walked in. Arthur handed me a copy of my statement with a paperclip that looked modestly proud of itself. Sienna sat 2 rows ahead, hair pulled back like she meant to obey physics today. No entourage, no sunglasses. Just a woman with her hands folded so tightly her knuckles rehearsed for snowfall. The judge explained the charges and the agreements like a careful teacher. Misdemeanor attempted identity theft, a felony count reduced to a plea with conditions, restitution, probation, no contact order, and mandatory classes. "This is not about humiliation," he said, calm as good weather. "It is about instruction." I wanted to hug the word and also frame it. When it was my turn, I stood, read my 1 page. Fraud teaches elders to be suspicious of envelopes and doorbells. It shrinks our evenings and makes us whisper our names as if they might break. Please help Miss Blake learn better work for her hands. I didn't cry. My voice trembled once and then remembered its choreography. The judge thanked me. Sienna kept her eyes on the floor. A pencil somewhere tapped mercy into the record. Odd fact of the day: the word probation comes from Latin probare, to prove or test. In other words, it's less punishment and more a semester. I can live with school. Outside the courthouse, the sky wore a reasonable blue. Arthur said, "It's done enough," which is the only kind of done I trust. Reyes shook my hand like a man who knows paper will keep doing half his job while he sleeps. I went home and made tea because kettles are graduation caps for ordinary days. Harbor House breathed along at its own tempo. Mabel adopted me, or I adopted her. It's unclear who signed first. She patrols the hallway like a librarian and naps like a thesis. Duke found a family with a backyard and a kid who writes him letters when he's in class. Sugar learned the joy of folding laundry badly. We framed the occupancy approval and taped a Polaroid beneath it every time a gray muscle left with a new human. The wall looks like a slow parade. Academic phrase of the day: collective efficacy. The shared belief a community can do a hard thing together. We were doing it mostly with folders and lemon bars. On Tuesdays, I taught a tiny clinic at the library, receipts and routines for real life. Grace Park made sign-up sheets that didn't judge. Linda brought coffee that forgave mistakes. We practiced calling banks with code words in our mouths and calm in our throats. Say it like you're returning a grocery cart, I coached. Firm, helpful, no apology. A man cried quietly when he got his first fraud alert set up. We passed him a tissue and a felt tip pen. Both helped. Elder wisdom of the day: predictable kindness is better than grand gestures. Grand gestures trip. Predictable kindness builds stairs. My intellectual aging event arrived on a Thursday while I was labeling bins. I needed the word for the flat kitchen tool with holes you use to flip pancakes. My brain offered whisk, no, colander, farther, fish slice, British, and inexplicable. And finally, 20 minutes and 1 biscuit later, spatula. I wrote it on an index card and taped it to the drawer like a truce. Dignity intact. Inventory improved. The house settled into me, and I into it. I planted rosemary under the kitchen window because remembrance matters, and because the plant forgives negligent watering. I took a brush to the baseboards and discovered the exact joy of caulk, which I will never again confuse with spackle thanks to the note I taped inside the bathroom cabinet. Spackle equals walls, caulk equals seams, memory equals labeled. 3 jokes scribbled on the Harbor House whiteboard to keep our lungs honest. If Process had a fan club, we'd sell stapler-shaped merchandise. If boundaries were biscuits, you'd know they're right when they hold their shape without getting hard. If community were a recipe, the secret ingredient would be bring a pen. One evening, Mrs. Alvarez from my duplex dropped by with marigolds and an opinion. "You should put the houses into a trust," she said, as if suggesting a casserole. Arthur agreed the next day. We drafted a simple living trust, Monroe Home and Harbor Trust, with Harbor House as a beneficiary and scholarships for vet tech students tucked in like bookmarks. Miss Patel witnessed. Reyes stopped by on his dinner break, ate a lemon bar, and signed as second witness with the solemnity of a man who doesn't smudge ink. I slept lighter that night. Legacy, yes, but also relief. The future finally had pockets. Odd fact, second helping, rosemary contains rosmarinic acid, which may help memory a little. The Victorians tucked sprigs into wreaths for remembrance. I tuck it into roast chicken and thank the century for giving me both seasoning and metaphors. Sienna sent one letter through her attorney, apology-shaped, careful, not asking for anything. She'd started the classes. She volunteered twice at an animal shelter in another part of town. "Good," I wrote in a reply Arthur mailed. "Please continue. No contact otherwise." We signed our boundaries like adults. Sundays acquired a shape. Service at a small church where the pastor still knows the hymns without a projector. Then diner lunch where the lemon bars now count as liturgy. Then Harbor House nap hour where Duke used to snore and Mabel currently supervises. After, I'd walk the perimeter at home, locks, windows, stove, router battery, then sit at the table with the deed and Andrew's letter and the occupancy approval stacked like quiet lanterns. I don't read them every time. I just let their weight say what paper says best. You are held by nouns, not hostage to adjectives. Academic phrase, final issue. Post-traumatic growth. The way a life can widen after it breaks, not because of the breaking, but because of the tending. When the first frost sniffed around the edges of the yard, I brought the rosemary pot inside and set it by the window where morning leans. The fan hummed the night into something soft. I wrote 3 sentences on recipe cards and slid them under the blue cookie tin, my private ritual of memory's pantry. Calm isn't surrender, it's steering. Privacy protects truth, secrecy protects lies. Paper beats adjectives. 3 last jokes for this chapter, tucked where my ribs can find them. If paperwork were Pilates, my core could hold a plank through tax season. If serenity had a brand, it would be embossed seals scented with lemon. If forgiveness came with instructions, step 1 would say, lower your shoulders, label the folder, make tea. That night, I stood at the sink and watched the porch light do its patient work. Mabel clicked in from the hallway and parked at my feet with a sigh older than the house. I told her the obvious out loud. We're okay. She believed me immediately. I'm learning to catch up. I turned off the lights, left the fan on low, placed the good pen by the good paper, and let the house teach me rest. Ordinary, labeled, deserved. Let's slow everything down now, the way evening slows the edges of a room. Picture the house as it is at this exact moment. Windows ready for morning, locks that remember your hands, a fan stitching the dark into gentle fabric. On the entry table, 3 quiet anchors wait without asking for attention. The deed with its embossed bite, Andrew's letter with its true voice, and the Harbor House approval that smells faintly of printer ink and promise.
Nearby, a sprig of rosemary leans toward the window, doing its small work of remembrance.
In another room, Mabel has found the center of a rug and made a circle of herself. At the library, a flyer with your neat handwriting tells strangers it's okay to bring a folder and a name. At Harbor House, there are rubber mats, bowls, blankets with histories, and a whiteboard joke or two that keep ribs lifting when days are heavy. The city hums outside, polite, unchanged, survivable.
There was a hearing, there were forms, there was a sentence that chose instruction over spectacle. There will be more paperwork, and there will be lemon bars. You learn to set boundaries that don't bruise. You put properties into a trust not as a monument, but as a map. You practice the small sentences that hold a life in place. I am the owner. I don't consent. Please route through counsel. Thank you.
So let your shoulders drop now. Let the fan carry what can be carried. If you need to walk the perimeter once more, stove, locks, window, router battery, you can. Otherwise, let the house hold your breathing. The night is long enough. The folders are labeled. The kettle knows when to sing. When you close your eyes, take only what is light. A dog's steady sigh, a paper's quiet weight.